are coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. Tonight's show for February 13th, 2024, we're going to be talking about alternative feeds and just that whole aspect of farming. Those of you that are doing livestock, you probably know that when you go to the feed store, feed's pretty expensive. And that's always a factor in what you're doing. You know, it affects your bottom line. So I want to talk about that. Before we do that, I want to welcome you to the Anyone Can Farm Experience live chat Tuesday night edition. I'm Mark, your host, coming from Baker's Green Acres in northern Michigan. And our day today, it was kind of a different day for me. They're all different, but it's February and it warmed up and we had some real nice weather there for a while, but now it's cold again. And we got a little snow last night, so it's still winter. Let's see what's supposed to happen here. I don't know if this is of any interest because we got people from all over that come and listen to the show. So this might be of interest. Okay, today our high was 31. Tomorrow we're going to have sun and the high of 36. So that's a pretty nice day, especially with sun. And then Thursday we got snow coming. And it's the weather for snow because it's going to be 34 degrees and 70% chance of snow. And then cold nights. Next Tuesday, Monday 38 high, Tuesday 40, Wednesday 35. So that's pretty nice weather right there. It's been kind of a strange winter. No complaints. We don't have a bunch of snow on the ground. That's kind of makes it easy to operate in. Today for us, we had our daily task of milking. I'm milking 4 right now. I have 5 cows. I have 5 milking cows, and it's kind of nice because we take really good care of them, and they're separated from the beef cows, so I'm not dealing with tons of manure in their area. And the beef cows are out in an area where they can do all the manuring they want, and they're quite separated. Once in a while they'll see each other and move back and forth. But there's 2 separate herds now, and that's the way we're going to keep it. Beef cows don't really require any input from me other than food and making sure that they're behind the fences that they're supposed to. And I've got that pretty well straightened out. We've got electric out there that keeps them pretty where they're supposed to be. And then there's a pond. So if we were having the type of weather that we're used to having in January, February, we'd be going down there and chopping ice so they could get at the water. But right now, they go and step around on the edge and they break it out. And I haven't had to break ice but about 3-4 times this year. And even then, I was just thinking I'm going to get ahead of it. So we got Ballistic Mystic with us. Long time, brother. Abundant Living. That would be my wife, and Mr. David Duncan. How are you? All right, so today me and Frank milked, and every team. I'm trying to get some competition going between the teams, but I think the best team really is me and Frank. We work really well together. Inga's with us, right on, and I've got 4 cows. I have one that's due to calf in about a month or 2. So if you're ever going to run anything like this, which I think after tonight's talk, I'm going to point out the benefits of milking cows. If you want to have some income coming off of your homestead that's reliable and it's pretty good, Belva, welcome. We haven't seen you on Wednesday night. Tomorrow night is Wednesday night. It's our consulting call. But there is another thing happening, and that's Valentine's Day. And Jill said, "Are we going to do the consulting call tomorrow?" And I don't see Valentine's Day as a huge deterrent, but some of you might be taking your spouses out for dinner or something like that. So give me an idea here whether should we push it off? Maybe I should be taking Jill out to dinner tomorrow night. Maybe I will. We could always put it off till Thursday night. That would be fine with me. I mean, that'd be a way to play it safe. Possibly. So Jill's hearing that now, so she'll probably run that through her brain and tell me what we should do. Oh, Bubba's got a date. Darn it. All right, well, that tips it the other way. All right, so just to reiterate the way we're operating right now, Tribe Plus, if you're in Tribe Plus, which you can get there very easily by going bakersgreenacres.com and signing up for it. It's a way to invest in what we're doing here, right? Not just our farm, but our training aspect as well. It gives me the ability to do more because it's a monetary challenge that I have. The vast majority of our income on this farm is through farming. So we raise pigs, we sell pigs. We raise chickens, we sell chickens. We milk cows, we sell the milk. And we could just do that and not do the educational aspect of it. But as we talked last week, I'm on kind of a mission. To get people up to speed. And so that's what we feel that we're going to do. And we are going to do it one way or another. But if you invest with us, it helps. It definitely helps. I am making videos during the day, just a video that you would see if you were with me and I'm doing something, and then I kind of expound on it. And it's not information I just want to put out to the entire world. I don't feel as though that's something I want to do. And I figure a little bit longer video, if you're into this, then it's worth your while to listen to it. And I feel like the information that I would want doesn't come, I'm not getting that on the internet overall. There's some good stuff here and there. But I want to put out more specific information for people that are doing this or plan to do this, seriously plan to do it, not just want to be entertained by some weird guy that's, geeking on, raising pigs and raising cattle and growing stuff and all that, and all the intricacies that come with it. Excuse me. All right, so it's that time of year. You always know they know when to send these out, right? The dog days of winter for the homesteader. It can be a little challenging. I must admit, I would rather have an in-person meeting tonight and have all of you over, and we could just sit around the table and goof around and talk about what we're doing, right? All right, Dave says take the boss lady out. Yeah, maybe I will. That'd probably be a good thing to do. All right, maybe I'll do that. What, Kentucky Fried Chicken, or we'll just go Tractor Supply. That's usually a good date. And I also got this today too. I saw this on the table. This is Town Line Hatchery. We've been doing business with them for a long time, and because we promote them, we get a deal on our chickens. And let's see, let me tell you what they're at this year. Um, Cornish Cross chickens, those are your white chickens, the fast growing ones. They're going to be $1.93 this year. When we started doing this, they were 80 cents. Freedom Rangers are going to be $2.16 a piece. And I'm choosing to look at this as though the money's not worth what it used to be, because I think that's really reasonable. I really do. So we're kind of what would they call us? A wholesaler. So we can get chicks in and then we can resell them. So they give us a deal on them. So we get them at wholesale prices. And we don't do a whole lot of it. We just, if you are a small homestead, let's say you want to do a load of 25, let's see. It's definitely okay. If you're buying 25 or more, the prices are a lot more. Okay, so Freedom Rangers or less. Okay, yeah. So if you're getting Freedom Rangers and you're getting 25 or more, it's $2.16 each. If it's less than that, you're paying $2.48. So I'm not sure what kind of deal we're offering, because if we resold them for if we bought them for $2.16 and resold them for $2.48, we're making, a few cents off each one. So I guess that's the draw of, like if you're Tractor Supply, you're getting them at $2.16 and then they bump them to like $3. I don't think we do that. But the benefit is we get them in the brooder, and if we sell them in a couple of days, they're a lot more likely to be okay. They're going to make it. So I think that's the draw. That's why we do it, I guess. And it's kind of nice if we sell chicks to people and then they bring them back to us to process them. So we make a little bit on the front end and then make a little bit on the back end. That's a way to support the business too. A better way, I think, more economical and more resilient if you learn how to do it yourself. And then you buy them in batches of 25 or more, and then you'll get the same deal. So there you go. But it's nice that they send this, because it gets you psyched. And you start thinking, well, today's February. The middle of February. Is it the middle? What did I say it was? The 13th. Yeah, we're pretty close to the middle. So, okay, we got 2 more weeks of February. And then March. March can be rough, but I don't think this year it's going to be. I'm hoping it isn't. And then we start getting into the nice days, April. If you're down south, where Belva is, April, they're putting their bikinis on by then. Up here, it's a little different. And then you go north, where David Duncan is, and it's a little bit cooler than it is here. You go way north to the Upper Peninsula, and they don't even see April as a warm month. They see May as a warm month, right? So it depends where you're at. And if you're down south, like where Andy is, I don't even know what the weather's like down there now in Greenbow, Alabama. But I know it's a lot warmer than it is up here. So anyway, we milked today, and then I got busy feeding. So the kids were doing school, and I opened a lot of bread, and I fed a lot of pigs, and I fed the cows. I made sure the cows had hay and all that. That was what my day was. Came in for lunch. Jill made us a really nice lunch at about 1. And I started feeling a little groggy after that. And I thought, I'm just going to lay down for a minute, because I like to be fresh for this show. And I took a 2 hour and 15-minute nap, and it was one of them really deep sleeps. And there was something moving through me, I think. I think I had a lot of emotional baggage from yesterday. My mother-in-law fell down in the shower, and she's not real old. She's like 74, but it knocked her out. She hit her head, and so she was at the hospital, and they kept her overnight. So it was kind of a day. Yesterday was kind of a day. So Jill thought I was letting go a lot of that stress today. Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. So we picked this subject for today because that's what I was doing. Another thing that I did was I had purchased a chipper shredder from another tribe member, Philip Jenkins. And Jill and I went up to his place and picked it up. Was it Friday? Yeah, it was last Friday. And then he showed us around his farm, and we got it loaded. And then we went out and had something to eat. That was really kind of nice. He has a restaurant up there in Boyne City, nice little town up north, and had some, barbecue restaurant and stuff. Just relaxed, had something to eat and yacked for a while. It was really fun. And got it home, and then it sat all weekend. I had planned to put it together and operate it, but I had things come up this weekend, so I couldn't do it. And so I got it most of the way, and then the last thing was getting the PTO shaft to fit onto my tractor. Of course, I had to get my tractor out. My tractor's been in storage next door, and I had to pull it out and get it running. And so it was kind of a project to get the whole thing. And I finally got it on tonight, turned it on, ran it up to speed, and then started experimenting with it. So the whole idea of the chipper shredder on this farm came from a man that we had here the day before Tribe Day last year, and his name is, we interviewed him too. I interviewed him, Nick Ferguson. And he's all about tree foraging. Right? So planting trees on your homestead that you can harvest off of and feed it to the animals. And I didn't even sit in on the class. I was getting ready for Tribe Day, but I heard here and there, and then he had these trees available, and I kind of filled in the blanks. And when this chipper shredder became available to me, they're not inexpensive pieces of equipment. They're very expensive. I thought that might be the ticket for me, because I have learned over the years that if you want to do well in this business, you have to keep your feed cost down. So I'm a big proponent of scrounging, and I'm all about scrounging building materials, fabricating materials, clothing materials, you name it. I'm into scrounging. And the country that we live in is so prosperous that there's assets laying everywhere. They're just all over the place. Furniture, building materials, you name it. It's everywhere. But there's another thing that happens too. Like, if you're a feed manufacturer, let's say you're Purina, and I don't use their products at all, but I know that they're out there, and it's a common name in animal feeds. You really want to drive people to your product. And that's business. That's business. So you don't want people to be going to local butcher shops and buying scraps from the butcher shop to feed to your dogs. You don't want that. You want people buying Purina. So you get on TV and you tell the public that your Purina dog food is the best dog food that there ever was and ever will be. And if you're a responsible dog owner, you're going to be feeding our product. And I get that. Sure, I get that. I used to have a pair of sneakers when I was probably about 5. And I used to see these commercials on TV. They were called PF Flyers. And if you had PF Flyers, you could run faster and jump higher. And here I am watching, cartoons, and they have PF Flyers on it. And boy, did I want to run faster and jump higher. Who didn't? And I'll never forget when I got my PF Flyers. I will never forget it. I got them on a rainy day. And so I could run from the living room into the kitchen. And I was trying to gauge, is this faster? I really couldn't tell because I didn't run in the house that much. But I definitely could run faster. And I know the next day outside, oof, you should have seen me jump. I was jumping so high. And so, the power of advertising. But the reality was I could run faster in bare feet than I could with my PF Flyers on. The reality. And I was always about reality. So when I got into this business, I will never forget out in Montana, I first got chickens, and then I got some wiener pigs, and I was still active duty. So I'd stop on the way home, walk around the feed store, and, I'm really, really getting into this. This is cool. And I'd buy feed. And I had this little Nissan pickup truck. It was my pride and joy. I love that pickup truck. It was 4-wheel drive, 1984. Great truck. I got it when it was 10 years old, and I had it until just like last year. Sold it to a guy. He works for John Spears, actually, and transmission went out of it. He beat it. But so be it. I had the thing for 25 or maybe 30 years. So let's see, what year did I get? Well, it doesn't matter, but I had it for a long time. And so I would be so proud driving home, and I had bags of feed on the back of my truck. Yeah. I wasn't something else that everybody else wasn't into. And I was real proud of that. But I realized early on that if I bought feed in bags, it was 20% more expensive than if I bought it loose. And so then I rigged up a thing on the back of my pickup where I could go to this feed mill, and I had ordered a quarter of a ton of feed, and then they would drop it on my truck in a bag, in a great big bag. Or then that was even more expensive. But if I had a container on the back of the truck, then I could get it even cheaper. So I started to think that way, but I was still stuck in the mindset that if you're going to feed pigs, you have to feed them pig food. I was stuck in that mindset. If you're going to feed cows, they have to be getting, the right kind of hay with the right percentage of protein, and then they need grain on top of that if they're going to grow fast, or cubes. That was a good one. They sold cubes, and they were cubes that were pressed, shredded alfalfa, and then they'd press them into cubes. And then if you were really a good guy, you bought those cubes and you fed those to your cows. And then they had these other cubes that had grain infused into them, and they'd press them. And it was all a way to add value to the product and convince you that you want this product. And, some of those products are easier to feed because they're easier to measure. And, of course, if you're going to be feeding a calf, how much are they supposed to get? I don't want to give them too much. I don't want to give them too little, And I didn't see the forgiveness that exists in this whole business. There is a lot of forgiveness in it. And if you graze cattle, you see that, hey, these cows are eating these bushes. Why are they doing that? Should I be concerned? When you graze cattle too, you'll see that, they'll go from alfalfa plant to alfalfa plant. They'll eat that first, and then they'll eat the Timothy grass. And then they'll go to the orchard grass and so on. They have their favorites. But everything has caloric value. Everything has caloric value. Even sawdust has caloric value. There were people that were in prison during World War II that ate bread that was made from sawdust. They powder it, they flour it, and they bake bread out of it. And that was done a lot. And people, there is caloric value. It might not taste good, but yeah, you can live on it. Your body will take calories out of it, and you can survive on it. I'm not recommending that because I don't have a machine. I don't have a mill that will make flour out of wood chips. But I would try it if I never had it, and I would certainly try it. And then we moved here. We got into pigs, and I was because that's what I knew. And I went to the mill down the road in Marion, talked with the guy. He seemed like a pretty good guy. He knew everything. That guy knew everything. His name was McCrimmons. I'm not sure if he's still alive. And he liked me because I was buying feed by the truckload. And they'd bring it here and put it in this old bin that I had scrounged. And then I'd feed it. And boy, did the pigs stink. But I just thought, stinky pigs, that's just comes with the territory. They would stink. And I remember at that time, one of the first farmers conference that I went to, small farmers conference, and I think it was the one, it was Joel Salatin was speaking at, so it would have been 2005, year after I got out of the service. And I was like, my farm stinks. And we built a farrowing house where I now milk cows. It was designed to milk cows. That's what you were supposed to do there. And we petitioned it off, and I had these stalls. There was 8 box stalls, and I thought this would be great. I'll be generating pigs like crazy, That'd be what I do. And we would feed in there, feed the sows in there. We'd put them in when they were a couple of days out from farrowing, and you bed them and you water them and everything, but they would manure it up pretty quick. They were really big sows, big white sows, and they just couldn't get enough feed. And so I would go down to check them at night, and I couldn't get back in bed. I stunk so bad. It would you'd have to take a shower before you got back in bed. And so we found out that the feed that they make has a very high concentrate of what they call crude protein. And crude protein, where pigs are omnivores, they were putting in powdered pigs into there. So at the feed mills, the big feed mills, they take everything that you can't utilize, everything that from a pig that's butchered that can't go in a Spam can, like the hide and the blood and the hair and everything, would go to this facility. They would dry it, and then they would pulverize it, powder it, and then that went into the pig feed. So, but that'll make them grow fast, is what they would tell you. Oh, pigs won't grow without that. They just won't grow. I remember hearing that. It was told to me with such dogmatism by the experts at the feed company. We have 2 feed companies in town here, and they'd gone to college. Darn it all. They went and had animal science, and they had their little offices and stuff, and they were real professionals. And they would tell you everything that you needed to know. And the stink was terrible. And I mentioned it. No, I didn't. Somebody else did. And Joel Salatin commented on it. And he would say, oh, well, you're just cleaning too much. And I would be like, what? I would think that would be cleaning a lot, but he said what you want to do is you want to add more bedding, more. So anytime that you can smell the animals, smell their manure, you need more carbon. And the rest of the story on that, I don't know if I picked it up then, but the rest of the story is when you add carbon, then what you're doing is you're building your compost medium. And you need compost medium because, right, we're homesteaders and we want to keep our costs down. So we're not going to buy fertilizer. We're not going to buy chemical fertilizer to put on our fields. And because we got to keep our costs down. And also, the more I learn, the more I realize that chemical fertilizers are sort of like a steroid. They'll give your field a shot and you'll get a big harvest the next year, but then you got to give them a little more to keep that boon going. And we don't want that. We want a sustainable operation. So we want to really contribute to the fertility of our fields and not just bump them with a chemical fertilizer. And that's the way it's done now in, I guess we call it factory farming. They plant a kernel of corn and then a pellet. Kernel of corn and a pellet. Kernel of corn and a pellet. So they're fertilizing as they plant, and then they foliar feed after that, and so on and so on. You know, it works, but are we getting a complete feed for our animals by doing that? The completeness of the feed requires a fertile field and an ecosystem out there that can digest the chaff and the organic material that's on the field and take the nutrient out and make that available in the plant that will then be available to the animal that you're feeding it to. Because just because, a good example of that is I was just listening to a testimony of an Amish family, and it wasn't good. It was bad, actually, but it's nice to know what's going on in the Amish community. And this was a community in Ohio, but I was listening to it, and the girl said that she was lactose intolerant. Really? But really what that is the milk doesn't have everything in it for the human body to digest it. So our raw milk, grass-fed, people don't have a problem with that milk because it's got the enzymes in it that are designed to be in that for a mammal to be able to break it down and then utilize it. But if the milk is, the cows are eating stuff that they can't use to make the milk that's going to be conducive to the calves that are supposed to be drinking it, then whoever gets it is like, well, I can't digest this, so it gives me the scoots. So I'm lactose intolerant. You're intolerant to the lactose that's in it, which in reality, that's not true. But that's what science would say. Oh, it's not the milk's fault. It's you. You're lactose intolerant. See, everybody else can drink it and only get minor skid marks in their undies. But you grease it right up, so it's your problem. So that's how they get around, the reality of animal feeding, the incorrectness of animal feeding. So there you go. We don't have to do that. There's all kinds of ways that we can skirt around that and save a lot of money. So Nick Ferguson was all about trees and bushes and alternative methods of feeding cattle and pigs and chickens. And it made a lot of sense. So I have on this farm lots and lots of species of bushes and trees that grow here. And, I could just see the the Department of Agriculture getting involved in here and saying, well, those are invasive, because they grow out of control. Poplar trees, they grow like crazy. They grow like weeds. You can harvest them every year and they grow back, and they grow back really nicely. And I don't think that they're a bad thing. I think they're actually a good thing. But in the past, we've been cutting them down because they encroach on our hay fields. And then just, you don't do anything with them. You just pile them up. And we were piling them up, and we'd say, well, it's a good place for the mice and all those guys to live. And if the mice are thriving on the edges of our fields, then the foxes and the coyotes will eat the mice and not be so inclined to want to eat our chickens. So it did work out. It definitely worked out. And I believe that to be true. But eventually those piles, they go down and they go back to the earth, and that's a good thing. But I ran an experiment. I actually made a video of it. I went out and I cut several species, and I brought it up and I fed it to the pigs. So I got birch, I got poplar, I got this other one that appears to be invasive. And when I say invasive, I'm saying it tongue in cheek. Like, if it's here, it's supposed to be here. Like, that's like saying a black and white cow, oh, they're invasive because they're not native. Well, then I guess that would make me invasive because I'm not native to this land either. And were the Indians and native here? Who knows? But I don't really go with all that invasive talk. It just seems kind of dumb to me. It just seems a way that they can say, well, there's too much of this and we need to have something to battle, so that's invasive. And we can make a website where you can identify it, and we can bring our people in, our stormtroopers in, and we can stomp that out and save the environment. Because don't you know, baby seals are dying in the Arctic, right? So that's their shtick. I don't buy it. I've got autumn olives that grow here like crazy. But anyway, I did this experiment where I cut all these different species of bushes and trees that grow here readily, really nicely, that in the past we weren't doing anything with. And I'd cut them, I'd put them in with a group of pigs just to see what would happen. And I was able to determine, wow, they really like this. They will eat this after they eat this. And they will eat this last unless I give them bread. And then they'll eat bread. But they would definitely eat it. They would definitely eat it. So I think the one that they liked the most, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was popple. And I have popple growing like crazy here. And so with this chipper shredder, as soon as the popple trees leaf out, you cut a tree down that's this big in diameter, 2 inches in diameter, and that is heavy. And if you can run that through a chipper shredder, you're going to get a nice pile from that. And if you run that through the chipper shredder, this is what I theorize. If I run that through the chipper shredder, say with a loaf of bread and maybe a handful of alfalfa meal, if I wanted to buy it, it's not that expensive, or some powdered seaweed, and if I live by the coast, I could be getting seaweed, a lot of seaweed, or some biochar, or some hay, right? It's like some third cutting, really coarse hay. And for those of you that know what I'm talking about, when we cut hay, first cutting is very supple and it's flavorful, and the animals like it the best. The second cutting is going to be more, let's see, what would be the word for it? It's, what's the word? Anyway, it's coarse. It's more coarse, and the protein is a little higher. right? Third cutting can be dangerous because the protein is real high and it's extremely coarse. And a lot of guys wind up cutting third cutting hay and nobody really wants it. It's kind of called rabbit food. Out west, you have to be very careful feeding it to cattle because they can bloat really badly on it. But if you have a shredder and you can run it through with other materials like even straw, then you've got a, like a cereal almost, and put some bread in there, put some seaweed in there, a little bit of biochar, and you never know. You might hit. I haven't done it, except tonight I did it, but the pigs were already in bed, so I couldn't get anybody to come out and eat it. And my trees don't have leaves on them yet. But this is what I'm theorizing. I'm theorizing I can make a feed with all of this forage, all of this tree forage that is all over my property, and I'll be killing a couple birds with one stone. So I'm not sure if it's going to work. I think it sounds like it will work. But see, Nick Ferguson was talking about certain species that he would grow, like mulberry and a hybrid popple, which he gave some of them to me, and I did plant them, so we'll see. But it's going to take a few years for them to get established, and we'll see. Let me go back and see who all is with us. I can get a little bit brownie points for David from Jill. Yeah. Ballistic says that's stressful. I don't know what that means. Feed and deep bedding. Yeah. Coastal Gardening's with us. Been a while. Good. Nathaniel Hathorn. I agree. I am a hoarder at work with leftover material. Hate to see it thrown away. That can get away from you, though. I got a buddy he is kind of a hoarder. I might need that. And I've been there, Red Ball Jets. Yeah, I remember those. They never had them at the store that we had in town, so I never had them. Angus says, not a related, but has anybody logged mature white oaks before? What is the average price per tree? Kids have 20 acres. I don't know about that. That is not a question for me. I'm not a forester. Not everyone survived the culture. International Homesteading's with us. That looks new to me, but welcome. Oh, Beth the Cleric is now International Homesteading. How about that? I wonder what the backstory on that is. I'm sure we'll find out. And our international student, Covey Bally, is with us. Right on, mother. Welcome. Okay. So I worked on that today, and I got pretty excited about it because this unit goes behind one of the tractors that I have that I don't use that much, but I have to have it for hauling hay and running the hay rake when we make hay. So on a regular basis, year to year, we cut hay. We have hay fields that grow grass, and we cut hay there. We dry that hay, we rake that hay, we bale that hay, and then we store that hay in our barn or in our hay barn, and then we feed that all winter long. And that is something to behold because our hay crop is good enough. And last year I had a very bad drought in the spring, and it really was stunted. And my first cutting was not good. Usually my first cutting is so thick that I almost panic with it because my equipment is old and it's small and it's not very powerful, but I kind of like it that way. I don't want to invest in super heavy equipment, super expensive equipment, and super complex equipment. I'd rather stay like 1960s, 70s technology, non-computerized and things like that. And parts are readily available. You know, you can build parts, and they're very repairable machines. So I like that, and I'm going to stick with that until I feel as though I need to do something different. I will tell you this. I had to buy some hay, and I bought hay from a guy that's in a couple towns over, and his equipment makes bales that are so heavy that I can barely lift them with my tractor, and they're not that big. It's second cutting hay, and my tractor is just barely lifting them, right? So some of that nicer equipment will make some really super hay, really super bales. Mine won't. Mine will make a 750 pounder that is about right for my operation, and I like that. But, you know, to each his own. Gary Rockwell is saying, I was told not to give animals black walnut or cedar wood chips because they are toxic. I could not concur with that. You know, I'm a big scrounger, and whenever I see the tree trimmers out, the guys that trim the power lines, they are not particular. Anything that's touching the power lines or close to the power lines, they trim it. So it's got everything in it, from white pine to unit. It's got everything in it. And nobody ever told me that. So when they're around, they are looking for a place to dump their chips. And an inside secret, I've told you this, is you would think that they would not want to travel very far to dump the chips. But a little secret is, if they're on a run to dump chips in those trucks, they're riding. And those trucks are air conditioned, and the crew stays together. So if it's a little bit of a drive, like within 25 minutes, the foreman will say, okay, you know, he'd rather have them go 5 minutes and then get back into the trees working. But if they can't just dump them in the ditch. They have to dump them someplace where they're going to be managed. You know, they can't, it would, if they dump them in the ditch, they're actually polluting, you know, and they can't do that. And the ditch, you know, the ditch is designed so it'll channel water away and stuff. And the people, the county would call foul on that. So if they have to go about 25 minutes, that's about perfect for them. And I know that because I have a friend that used to work on those crews and was a foreman, and he knew the game, right? So if you can get those, definitely get them. And if you've got marginal land and you have pigs on it, and the pigs are on there so that you can turn it into non-marginal land by dumping those wood chips in there, the pigs go through it and they pick out what they want. And the rest of it, the microorganisms in the field, they'll have a field day with the rest of it. And the microorganisms, of course, when they digest organic material, they manure. And that's where your soil comes in. That's how you build soil. So the more organic material you can get out there, the better. Now, I don't really recommend it in your garden, because to break those nitrogen, and if areas where the plant, and so you could set that by putting chips and manure into the walkways. But who wants to walk on manure? You know, who wants to be kneeling down in manure? Kind of nobody does. So the safe way to do that would be to put chips in a pile, especially if you have a loader, and then put your scrounging hat on and drive around. You see somebody that's got horses, let's say. and they clean out their barn, and then they pile this manure. Like, what are we going to do with this? And you show up there with a dump trailer or a dump truck or something, or a pickup, and you say, I can take that manure off your hands. They might be real happy to hear that. And then you bring that manure home, you mix it in with the chips, you pile it up, get it to start making heat. And that would be what you'd want to put on the garden. But maybe not until it's stabilized, until it's not making heat, like a year. Some people would say even 2 years. And there's nothing wrong with having multiple compost piles on your property. I have two all the time. I have the one that I'm going to spread, and then the one that I'm using. And I use my compost pile for disposal of feathers, like rabbit hides. We process a lot of rabbits, and we do not do anything with the hides or the heads, and the pigs don't want them, and the rabbit guts the pigs don't want. So they go in the compost pile, and they disappear. Or what else do we put in the compost pile? Chicken feathers, lots of chicken feathers. And there's a lot in those chicken feathers that my fields can use, but not until they're broke down by the microorganisms in the compost pile, right? If I was going to up anything that I'm doing here, probably the smartest thing that could up is composting. I have a dump truck, right? I have a 66 C60 truck, Chevrolet truck, with a grain box on the back, they call it, but it dumps, right? And I should be going to my neighbors who have big piles of manure and saying, I can take that. But the thing is, around here with me, if I identify something as valuable, they're going to be like, I don't know, maybe I want to keep this, or maybe you want to give me some money for it, But so people know I'm working angles all the time, and you gotta. I have an Amish neighbor over here, and he had so much manure on his place, and then he found out I had a truck, and he said, "Say, could you haul some of this out of here?" And I had been to a small farms conference where I learned a lot about composting. And the Amish back then, they didn't go to small farms conference because it was foolishness, absolute foolishness. And so I said to him, yeah, I could. And I spent one day, I remember it very, very well. I had an accident and I broke some ribs. And I was working at the time. I was working in town. I was working at a power plant, and I couldn't function, man. I couldn't even get in and out of a pickup truck. I couldn't. It hurt so bad. And I didn't think I had broke ribs. I thought I was just bruised. So the boss over there said, you better get down and get looked at. And I did. And they said, we can't send you back to work. You're going to have like 3 days off or 4 days off, I think it was. My boss was irritated about that. It didn't happen on the job, and it happened here. I fell on the ice and I had something in my pocket and I broke it. Actually didn't fall. I dove. I was showing off. But they gave me pain medication, and it was I forget exactly what it was, but it's not something that they should have given me because it took the pain away. So it was like, let's work. And so anyway, I was hauling this manure, and it got to be like, how many trips have I made? And the Amish guy had his kid loading me with their front end loader, and I was bringing it home and I was dumping it. And then I would push those, I was dumping them in rows pretty close together. And then I would push them together, and I had these nice long windrows of of manure and bedding. And the Amish guy went by. He had to figure out what I was doing. And I just told him, Mom, I'm making compost. And he didn't see the point of that. But he came by and he saw these 300-foot windrows that I'd made, nice and neat. And they really get jacked about that. And he said to me, what are you going to do with that compost? And I had this idea that I would sell compost to people. And I thought and I'll just be a compost, because in my early days, I was thinking, I got to do one thing. I don't want to do like a million things. I want to do one thing. I could be a composter. I have a tractor, I have a truck, I have all this space. I'm going to be a composter. And long story short, when he figured out I was making a good product out of that and that I was possibly going to sell it, it changed from me hauling it out of there for nothing to paying for it. And then he wouldn't give it to me at all. And he started composting, and now he sells it. And I think he makes a good chunk of change doing it, because he sells to a distributor. And anyway, that's the way it is. When you discuss, if I had said nothing or said, well, I can haul it out of here, but it's going to be $10 a truckload to haul it out. That's what I should have done. I was really naive back then. Anywho, I made a lot of compost and I spread it on that top field, and boy, what a change it made in that field. Wow, what a difference. And I did it again last year. It worked out really well. Okay, so let's talk about alternative feeds. For every animal that you have, there are alternative feeds. And I'm not saying that let's say you've got a nice flock of laying hens and you're making enough money off of the sales of your eggs, which takes time to build a clientele, that you can buy feed and you're kind of breaking even. That's pretty common with people that do it. And they'll say, oh, well, I enjoy it, and I like doing it and stuff. But you really should be making a gain. You should be gaining. You should be making enough that you're covering your replacement hen cost. You're covering your cartons. Of course, people will give them to you. You're covering your feed and your maintenance, and then you're making extra that you can go on to the next process, or take your wife out for Valentine's dinner or something. You should be making a gain. Everything that we do on the homestead, there is a gain in it. It's just when we play into the PF Flyer mentality and we listen to experts on the internet that say, oh no, you've got to be feeding at least a 20%, and they have to have this much. And if you don't buy organic, wow, that's a scam right there. I know people that do that. And then they say, there's just no money in this. If I would have to sell my eggs for $7.50 a dozen. And then they scam their customers too. I know this one dude that's doing it, and he goes to a farmer's market and he kind of shames people. You can't be a hippie if you don't buy organic eggs. Don't go crying to me when you come down with the Wu flu if you're not buying organic eggs. And people, they fall into it. They really do. It's funny. But, you can sell eggs for $5 a dozen. I think that's what we sell them for. I don't know. What do we sell them for, Jill? I really don't know. But I know we make a gain on them because I take it to the next level in the chicken thing. All right. So let's just talk chickens here. We're talking alternative feeds. Let's just talk chickens. If the chickens ate air and I've got 75 hens and I'm getting an egg out of 65% of them or 75% of them, and So we're averaging, let's say, 50 eggs a day. Well, let's say two. I think when we're really cranking, we're getting about 4 dozen a day. So that's what, yeah, like 50 eggs a day. And that's nice. That's really nice. And they can go in the store and they attrit off the shelf, $5. Now, if they're just eating air, I'm killing it. I'm killing it, because if you sell them for, $5 a dozen, and you sell 4 dozen a day, some days you sell 8. But you got to go by, they're generating 50 eggs or 4 dozen, at $5 a dozen. They're generating, those hens are generating $20 a day. $20 a day. So this is how you have to look at it if you want to, bring good business practices into it. I should be able to do this in my head, but I like to be able to show you $20 a day times 7. So you're generating $140 a week, right? I mean, that's not gonna send you to Acapulco, but that's just off of this one little function right here, and that's a few chickens. All right, and let's take that times, and I know that they don't lay like that all the time. Sometimes they lay more, sometimes they lay less. Times 52. So, that's a year. What would that pay for? On some of your properties, that would pay your mortgage. It could pay your mortgage if your mortgage is low enough. I think our farm out in Montana, I don't remember exactly. I think we paid $700 a month times 12. So our mortgage was $8,400 a year. I mean, that was with taxes and everything. And but I didn't think about those things back then. I just didn't think about this. So let's think about them now. And then I was probably saying, well, you can't make any money on eggs. Well, no, you can't if you're buying $12 a bag feed and they're going through a bag a day. Because if you're selling 50 eggs or 4 dozen at $20, and you're making $20 per day, and you're feeding a bag of feed a day at $12 minus 12, well, then you're making $8 a day. And you can't get too excited about that. So you don't really want to, well, I don't want to put any money into the infrastructure in this. And after a while, it's not as cool as it was to like name your chickens and, oh, look at that one, so cute. That drops off after a while. And then it's like, you girls better start laying eggs or I'm going to be making chicken sausage out of you. But if you are doing well with it, then you think like, well, maybe I could have 100 chickens, instead of getting 4 dozen a day. What if I was getting 6 dozen a day? What if I've got people that are coming to my little stand or my store, or that are approaching me in church or whatever, and say, have you got any more eggs? And you're selling out eggs, let's say. Then it starts getting exciting. Then you start thinking about, well, how could I make this work even better? And I've had that conversation with myself many times. And so when I have those conversations, I wind up asking questions to myself. And sure enough, the answers start to come. So what I did is we went with the model of having chickens in a mobile house, and we would move the mobile house around, and the chickens were eating bugs, and they were going through the cow manure, the cow flops that were out there, and picking the maggots out and all that stuff. And it was great, except we'd have a couple of them that would see the barn and say, I want to go to the barn. And two of them would come, and then two more. And before you knew it, I had half a dozen of them at the barn. And then they were in the garden, and then they were in, laying eggs and pooping on my toolbox, or they had the weirdest habit of sitting on my pickup truck right where the windshield transitions into the hood. I don't know why. But if I tried to catch them, oh no, you're not going to catch us. They would take off, and then you wouldn't see them. They'd go under the truck, and it was a real hassle. So I jettisoned that whole idea of the mobile chicken coop, and we pulled it up into a place, and then we built a fence around it, and we locked them down, because those darn things are probably the most destructive. If there's 5 of them out, man, they're destroyers. They can really wreak havoc on a nice homestead. They dig, yeah. So I jettisoned that idea. And then what you wind up with is you have this chicken pen, and after a while, nothing grows in it because it's so out of balance, and you can't get in it except through a personnel door, and that wasn't good. So I knew that I had to revamp it. And what I did is I built a new chicken house that would house more chickens. And then I had 2 pretty good sized pens, big enough that I can get in there with a rototiller on the back of my tractor and loop around and rototill that stuff up really good. And then I can plant it. And while that one is growing, they're on the other one. And the other one, if I was to show you this now, I planted kale in there in the fall, and the kale plants came up, about a foot, and then it snowed, it got cold, so they quit growing, but they don't die. They don't die, even in this cold climate. They just go dormant. And then the snow came down on them, and I swear they grow under the snow. Now the snow is gone, and it's just bright green, but they're only up about a foot. And so I'm not going to let the chickens go in on that. This is kind of our slow time. I want to wait until it warms up, and then those kale plants, they take off. I think kale it's neck and neck here, Beth, like kale and rye. Like, I'm not sure which one I really like better. You guys know I really like rye, because I've taken fields that were sand fields, and planted rye, and it'll grow not real good the first time, but then turn pigs on it. They eat it, manure it back, urinate back to it, and then I plant it again. And this time it comes out better, and then better, and then better. And so my fertility is going up. The pigs are eating it. They're digesting it, roots and all, and then manuring it back to the soil. They're putting all their microbiology into the soil, and the soil, it becomes sandy loam instead of sandy sand, Or if it's clay ground, then you're putting organic material in it, and it balances it out. It'll become loam instead of clay, And you can do this with all of the animals will do this, but pigs seem to work really good. A combination of pigs and chickens, boy, that works good. And then when the ground can handle more material, you put cows out there, and it really does a good job, because they step, and when they step, they part the soil and allows things to grow up. And things happen. I had a stand of Jimson weed that came up last year, and it was ferocious. It came up on 2 fields, and it's like, I couldn't believe it, how invasive it was. The animals won't eat it, and it's dangerous. It's actually dangerous to fool with. You can hallucinate off of it, and you can actually poison yourself with it. So I cut it down. All these measures I took. Finally, I went and I got a bottle of 2,4-D. It's 2,4-D is what they used in Vietnam and Agent Orange. It's a defoliant, and it is vicious, you know. And I went and I started hitting plants, individual plants, and they would turn brown and go down. And I don't know what's going to happen this year because a lot of them seeded out. They have these seed pods on them that are covered with stickers that you could not pick one off with bare hands. You couldn't. They're vicious, gross, ugly plants, and I haven't figured out what to do with them. I know they're part of the creation, so there must be a reason for it. Maybe I'm supposed to take time off in my later years of farming, and you can take the sap out of it, and you can make a tea out of it, and then actually go on trips, without even leaving the farm. I don't think I'll do that though. Okay, so I have these fields, these pens, these chicken pens. They're pretty good size. They got to be probably 40 by 40 feet, which seemed to be a good size. But if I was to do it again, I would probably make them bigger. Because when you grow this forage in there, I am only giving my chickens about a bag of feed a week. And I do that because I know that the feed that we buy is more balanced. Like the guys that I get the feed from over in Mayo, they know what they're doing. And so I know that my chickens are getting a balanced feed. But they do go in and eat the kale and the rye. And then we're giving them other stuff too. Like chickens are super digesters. We've been butchering a lot of cattle lately, and you get a lot of small pieces of fat, and they get wiped off the table. They fall on the floor, and instead of just leaving the floors bare, we put sawdust down on the floor. So when that fat hits that and you step on it, it doesn't grind it into the concrete. And because in the wintertime, I don't want to be hosing the floors down because it just makes an ice mess, and I don't want to do that. So there's sawdust down on the floor, and it really holds the fats and little pieces of meat and any of the fluid that drips off. And periodically we change that. I put that in with the chickens. They go wild. They go absolutely wild on it. They pick all little pieces out. And they're omnivores too, so they can handle it. So that takes away, like, they need a certain amount of calories. Let's say there's 75 chickens in there. There's a threshold of minimum number of calories that have to go in there to sustain them. If I'm dumping sawdust in there that's got pieces of meat in it, I'm tipping the scales. If I'm growing kale in there and those darn things eat it, there is caloric value in it. They're going to take as many calories as they need, right, in the course of a day. You're not going to see a bunch of fat chickens in there. They're going to take what they need, lay their egg. They're not like humans. Like, oh, this is good, I want a double helping. They won't. Not saying that they won't put on fat, but they're not going to be like the fat hens on Chicken Run, for instance. They won't be like that. So you can grow feeds in there. And there's a double benefit to that. If you don't grow feeds in there and it's just dirt, because they're going to be walking around all day, anything pops up, piece of grass or whatever, they're going to take it. After a while, that dirt pen is going to get way out of balance. And when it gets out of balance, that's their environment. They're going to get out of balance. And when they get out of balance, first thing that's going to happen is their egg production is going to drop off. So we want to keep their environment nice for them. And when you're taking care of animals like this, think about yourself. You want your environment to be in balance too, a balance of the things that you need. And that's a subject for a different story. But in the wintertime, people struggle with psychological problems, and we can fix ourselves, but we just have to say, okay, if I was managing me, what is off here, and what should I be doing that I'm not doing? So, uh, yeah, alternative feed being something that you can grow right in their environment. And if you have two pens, I have two now. I'm going to be building a third, and this one's going to be really big. I want to be able to find things that I can grow in there that are really going to benefit these chickens. So um, after a while, the soils in these pens become really rich. And like if they become too rich and they go over the edge, then they start to sour. They get too, it's like if you had a pile of manure and you try to grow something, it's a little too much nutrient in there, then they stink, they're out of balance, and it takes a lot to bring them back into balance. So you can keep them in balance if you just observe. And as soon as there's nothing growing on there, move the chickens over to where there is something growing and seal off that. Get in there, rototill it, let it sit for a couple days, seed it down real quick, and then be cognizant of, oh, well, it's early spring. I'm seeding this little patch down with something in early spring. What works in my area in early spring? What will germinate, but then be cold enough hardy that it won't, kill if we get a cold night? And there's several things like that. I am a big user of field peas in the spring. They work great. A combination of field peas and rye. You can't go wrong, I don't think. I've gotten a stand of field peas that was probably up about a foot, and then it got viciously cold for a couple of days, and I had a kill. That's only happened one time. It never happens with rye. I have never had that happen with rye. So, if you plant two species, you get an effect where there's vigor that's created because there's competition between the two species. And, you can do a lot of research on those things, but there's nothing like trying it and then writing down in your journal what worked. Or if you don't keep a journal, just keep a mental note, what worked. And then you could, if you have enough pens, then you could always be using one as a fail-safe. Well, this works. I know this works here, so I'm going to do this. But then venture out into different areas. Like the thing with kale, I would have never bought that if it wasn't a target of opportunity. We got this place where it's a co-op. It's the old co-op. It's not called the co-op anymore. A big company bought it, and they've staffed it with a bunch of people not from around here, and they think that the people around here are into things that people down south are into for some reason. And one of the groups of people that they cater to is hunters. Hunters can be a real pain. If you're a landowner and you're, a working person, and these people come up from wherever they live in the southern part of the state, where it's all cities, and they come up here, they just think that it's a wonderland, and they can go where they want and do what they want. They don't realize there's an order here too. Etiquette. They don't really realize there's etiquette. But anyway, the company that bought the co-op is catering to them. And so they buy these big bags of seed, and then they break them down into smaller bags, and they sell them to the hunters, so the hunters can take them out into the woods and build what they call plots, feed plots. So these guys, they go out in the woods and they rototill up an area, and then they plant these crops, and they think, well, that's going to draw the deer. Then I'll sit up in this tree and I will shoot me a big buck. I don't know if it works, but it sounds good on paper. And so you'll see signs out on the road, food plots. And so what that is somebody has land and they build these plots, and then they advertise that this is where the deer is. You can sit in this. I'll let you sit in my tree for $250 a day. And I know of people that do this, and they get suckers that pull in there. And I think they just feel happy that they can climb up in a tree with a gun and hunt. What are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going hunting, Bill. It's the dumbest thing. I used to be into it too before I owned a farm, and then it was like I don't have time to sit in a tree to shoot some stupid deer. Where I have opportunities to shoot deer every darn day, but then you have to clean it and you got to do all that. And if it's in the freezer and I go to the freezer and there's beef and chicken and pork and deer is last almost all the time, unless one of my kids shoots a deer and then they cook it up right there and they've done it and it's a treat and all that, then yeah, it's good. But it's nothing like a beefsteak. Anyway, I get these seed compilations that they put together for the hunters, and they even do this. They make this kind of thing. You can benefit off another person's ignorance. You really can. So the people that are running this outfit, they bag up seeds for, let's say, 2023. These are 2023 seeds. How do you know? Well, because we got these bags in 2023. Yeah, but you don't know when those bags were put together wherever they do that. But they do this, the employees there, and then anything that's left over when winter comes, it's like, well, that's 2023's, and they mark it down like so much that I was buying 5 pounds of kale in Ziploc bags for $5, right? And when you plant like 40 by 40, you're using like, to plant it heavy, like a big handful, and that's really heavily seeded, and there's pros and cons to that. But anyway, I've got a lot of kale seed, and if I went over there and I saw they had more, which all I have to do is go over there, and I'm sure they do, I would buy more, right? Because it doesn't go bad. Seed doesn't go bad. Unless it's maybe, I don't know, prehistoric. No, not even prehistoric seeds. How old are the seeds that germinate when you put a plow in a field and you have a seed of lamb's quarter that generates or that germinates? But there hasn't been lamb's quarter out there in the 20 years that I've lived here. But all of a sudden, we accidentally dig up. I'm plowing or something with a snowplow, and I accidentally skimmed some of it off. And then in springtime, oh, here comes lamb's quarter. Where'd that come from? It didn't like float in. It's in the seed bank. And those seeds, who knows how old they are? Who knows? I'm sure you could get some person to tell you. Because they could tell you, well, that seed, I can tell that seed right there. That's 4 billion years old. Because I did a carbon-14 test on it. And I'm a scientist. And so you believe them, right? Who knows? And I don't think, if we're supposed to know, maybe they'd have a date on them, but we don't know. So that's where I get a lot of my seed, and that grows up. My chickens eat it. They manure it back to that field. I rototill it. I plant more, So what does a handful of seed cost? How many handfuls are in a Ziploc bag that I paid $5 for? 50, 50. So I'm planting the fields for very little, a little bit of gasoline for my tractor. But if I didn't have that, there's other ways to do it. For the pig fields that we grow alternative feeds in, a lot of times before I take them off, when they've got a field completely cleared off, there's nothing out there, I'll go out there and throw seed. The seeds are too small for them to get. But when they're out there running around, they're poking them in. They're seeding them in for me. They're like little human drills. Some of it sits on top and won't get pushed in until the next time. But that's okay, because I'm building a seed bank out there. so that at some point, well, I didn't get around to seeding it, but here comes those marijuana plants again. You know, it's pretty neat. And Blistic, he's the guy that gave me the marijuana plants, or hemp, whatever. Those things grow like gangbusters, boys. Too bad I didn't know what I was doing when I planted them. I planted them all. I need more. I'd like to grow that again. That was a pretty decent crop. I've seen people that grow it, and they're trees. And if I had those trees, I think that I could go out there and I could just knock limbs off, and the pigs would eat those. And then they provide shade, so it would shade the field. And I've seen where they grow really, really well. And one of these days I want to do it if I can find some of those hemp seeds again, or somebody. We're going to be having a seed day in May this year. It's going to be a little later, so we can exchange seedlings too that people put together. And it's basically a open house day where we eat and fellowship and have fun. I really have fun. We have a good time. So, okay. And then another source that I have of feed here is scrounge. It's scrounge. Well, I skipped over one. And I've told you this one before, but this is really a good one for new people to know this. We have a chicken processing business that we run. So one day a week in the summer for about 6 months, we allow people to bring their chickens here from the neighborhood. And the neighborhood has grown. I mean, it's big now. So we're full. We're doing like 200 chickens every Friday. And my kids and Jill and me and Kavi. And this year the interns are going to be carrying some of the load. We process a lot of chickens. So the cast-offs from that, the byproducts from that is heads, feet, and guts, and feathers. Feathers, nobody eats feathers. I understand that you can pulverize them and it's a protein, but my compost pile likes them, so the compost pile is going to get them. But the heads, the feet, and the guts, occasionally people want feet, and we do set feet aside, but generally it's from our chickens. Because if people are feeding their chicken stuff that I wouldn't eat, then I'm not going to sell it. So those feet, 99 and 44 100% of the time, they're going to the pigs. So on Fridays, I break up all of that stuff into batches, heads, feet, and guts, and I'll take a bucket load to this group of pigs, and to this. And I have 3 groups on the farm right now, but come next summer, I'll only have 2. I'll have the breeding pen, and then I'll have the feeding pen. So there'll only be 2, and that's how I want to keep it. I have 2 breeding pens right now, and as soon as they're done with their last load, then they're going to be going in the freezer. The boar, somebody is supposed to take my boar from there. He's about 500 pounds. If anybody in the tribe needs him, I'll make you a whale of a deal. Or anybody in the tribe wants to butcher him for dog food, I'll make you a whale of a deal. I don't have time to do it right now, and I don't have freezer space, and he's just hanging out. He's not going to be with his girls any longer, and his girls, they're too big, so I've got a new group that I'm doing right now. So anyway, if anybody needs them. All right, so that's a scrounge. That's a byproduct. Other byproducts that we have for alternative feeds would be the garden refuse. We choose to bring the garden refuse to the pigs, but there was a time when I would put the pigs in the garden. I don't do that anymore. I just don't. But it can be done. You can actually build like a pig tractor, and heavy enough that the pigs can't get their noses under it. And you can put small pigs in it, and you can move it around your garden, and they'll dig it all up for you, and they'll get manure in there, and it works. I'm not going to do it anymore, though. I'm just not. I got permanent stuff planted in the garden right now that I don't want them to tear up. The ghost says, if I was a hunter, I'd plant strawberries. Huh. Last year, I grew some wheat in raised beds. The deer left it alone completely, decimated the strawberries instead. Yeah. Until you're going to harvest the wheat to make bread, and then they'll eat that too. I'm making a bunch of salve with it. Great for muscle inflammation, says Jill. I don't know what she's talking about. Yeah, so Gary, all I can say on that is I have not found that to be true. I've never had a pig kill itself from what it's eating. Not happen. Of course, we have Mangalitsa and Mangalitsa crosses, but I'm all Mangalitsa now. There's no crosses anymore. I have a few little ones that I'm going to be selling. But the thing about Mangalitsa is they are known for eating many different things. Many different things. Like they will eat straw if you put it in. All right, the ghost is with us. Crunchy Mom is with us, right on. Busy people there down in Texas. David Duncan says, you are acting too happy about manure on that dope, and he got suspicious of you. I don't know. Okay, Ghost says increase, not income. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Increase, gain, Audubon's with us too, right on. The ghost. Okay. We're down to the end. Okay, and then the last category that I take advantage of is scrounge. Scrounge. Might seem kind of weird, but if a deer is on the side of the road that's been hit, I'm in a really rural place, so if you pick up a deer on the side of the road, chances are really good. Nobody gives a damn. But then there might be that one-off time where some conservation officer from the DNR would see and give you a hard time. They can be real jerks. I worked a deal years ago, and I'm pretty protective of this deal with a local bakery, and they're organic. They use organic flour. And again, it's a marketing deal. When I eat the bread, it makes me crazy, so I don't eat it. I don't think we're supposed to be eating that much grain. But occasionally I eat some of it because it just looks good when I'm opening bread for the pigs. But I have a contract with them, and it's a disposal contract. So I get lots of bread. It takes a lot of time to unwrap. But you write some big checks if you're buying feed. So I would prefer to use the money that we have to increase our infrastructure. And people in the tribe have shared with us the places that they scrounge feed for their pigs. Breweries are big. You get what they call spent grains because they brew, beer or hard liquor, and they got to get rid of that stuff. So if you're Johnny on the spot and you're showing up and you're getting it out of their way, they like that. A lot of restaurants, if you approach it from the sustainable aspect, it's sustainable, and especially if they're hippies, they'll think that they're saving the, you could even go in there. It's marketing, right? It's marketing. You say, you do believe in global warming, don't you? Oh yes, says the proprietor of the hippie restaurant. Oh yes, I'm very concerned with the whales and seals dying, baby seals dying, of course. Well, when all of this garbage that comes off your prep tables goes in the landfill, it contributes to global warming, or no, climate change. So if you put it in these barrels, I will take it and feed it to my pigs. And together we can save the planet. And even if the guy doesn't believe it, he's not going to let you know he doesn't believe it, because it's very fashionable these days to believe in global warming or climate change, right? It's so stupid. But most of the things that we deal with are stupid, very stupid. Like everything is a gimmick. Everything, it seems like. Everything is a gimmick, except what I'm telling you. It really isn't. Like when, except Tribe Plus. Yeah, that's kind of a gimmick. Like you can be the extraordinaire homesteader like me. And I am, because I tell you I am. And I got this too. See this? I'm wearing these colors. So I don't know. I think everything's a gimmick. It's just some things are more gimmicky than others. If you're getting real information that you can use, and all of a sudden it opens up your horizon, I say it's worth it. I would say it's worth it. I wish there was somebody like that I could have listened to when I was starting out on this journey. Spent grains are great for protein, but keep in mind the carbs have been leached out of them. Is that a caution? That sounds like a caution. What could happen if you fed too much spent proteins? What could happen? Sounds like a caution. Some protein loss as well. That's what gives your beer its head. David Duncan says, we have a few old line Mobga Mangalitsa sows and boars. Excellent certified stock. Oh, yeah, David, probably these people don't know about that. We had a meeting over this, and I've been meaning to let the public know about this, but Mobga, Mobga, is Mangalitsa's of Baker's Green Acres. And any of the ones that are sold, if you want them certified, right? I, as well as my wife Jill and various others in the community, can certify them as genuine Mobga certified stock. Yeah, with lineage, and you'll have lineage as well for only a few dollars more. That's the greatest gimmick. And not only that, I will write your name in the Mobga book. Yeah. So not only are your pigs certified, your name is recorded in the Mobga book of pigs. Yeah, I'll write it in there in my own handwriting. And at some point, if you're going to a big pig gathering, I can give you a copy of that, and you can say, well, my pigs are certified, right? And there's all levels of certification. There's regular certification at this price, and then there's the deluxe certification at this price. And with the deluxe, we can even put your certification in a frame, and we can assign names to your pigs. It's really good, and you will be the coolest guy in your neighborhood. All right. Keep in mind, if you're trying to formulate your livestock diet, if you need the carbs and they ain't there, Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Ghost, because what I am doing here is and you did say you came late. I am trying to dispel a lot of things like that. Like on the internet, it seems like the 30, 40-year olds, they are very focused, and that can be good. They're very focused. I'm raising pigs. I've got to learn everything there is to do about pigs and never deviate. But what I'm trying to tell you is this is a very forgiving process. You know, you think about pigs that are wandering around in the Pacific Rim. They're wandering around and eating bananas that fall out of trees. Oh, well, what do we got here? We got a dead koala bear. We'll eat this. And what do we got here? Oh, it's some grass. I'll eat this. What do we got here? You know, they're not on a strict diet. And that strict diet thing, I don't know. I almost think that it's unnatural. Like in a CAFO, a concentrated feeding operation, they will have, for the first this many months of the animal's life, they get this feed, and that is all they get. There's no deviation because the scientists have figured out that the weight to feed ratio is maximum up to this point, this many months of development, and then they switch them to a different feed profile, right? They may not need as much protein at that quadrant of their life, and protein costs money, so let's take that out. Because what are we concerned with in the CAFO business? The bottom line, baby, that's it. We're not worried about the welfare of the animals. We're not worried about the environment, even though baby seals are dying. We're not worried about anything except the bottom line. We're not worried about the health of the people that are getting the product. We don't give a damn about them. We're just the bottom line. That's it, right? And you'd think our illustrious United States Department of Agriculture and State Department of Agriculture, they'd be right there making sure those products are safe for the human beings to eat. You'd think, but not so much. So I guess what I'm saying, Ghost, is I want to dispel a lot of that these animals that, well, if you don't give them the right protein, you may go out there and find them all dead. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. These animals are durable, especially if you're doing Mangalitsa or any of the heritage breeds. They are durable, right? I could not feed them and they would start eating their bedding. When it's time to eat, they're going to eat, you know, so they're going to find stuff to eat. And if all I have to feed them is hay for the day, it's cheap. It's really cheap. They'll eat it. I was talking a little, and I meant to tell you, if you find a farm that is doing third cutting hay, sometimes they do it for certain reasons. That hay, they'll put it in a hammer mill and they'll pulverize it, and then they'll mix things in with it, you know, and make a ration out of it for, say, dairy cows or beef cows, whatever. Generally, you can get that hay very inexpensive. You can't over-protein your pigs. With cattle, yeah, you can over-protein them and they'll bloat. I've never had it happen. I have over-carbohydrated them, you know, too much bread, and had a cow that bloated. She wasn't here. She was at somebody else's farm, and I didn't actually do it. He did it. One of his kids did it, and she was my cow, and she died. She found her dead in a water trough. It was terrible. She was a great cow. I brought her over there to get her bread, and said I wouldn't don't give her bread. Don't do it. She's not used to it, because we weren't doing it, and it didn't. They did. So she died. David Duncan is saying, we hope to see you for another meeting in a week or so and show you the paperwork we're drawing up. Very, very good. Very good. We need to do that. Mobga Mission is premium Mangalitsa phenotype. Don't forget that. And when people ask you, you can say that, and they'll think you're smart because you just use some big words, right? They'll think you're really smart. The ghost. I didn't mean it that way. Just don't want people to think there's something in the feed that isn't. Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Thanks for the heads up. I know you're just being helpful. But as far as feeds go in the homesteading model, we're not looking for the quickest feed out, the highest speed stuff. We're not really looking for that because we got time. When you're talking a CAFO, a concentrated feeding operation, that is a building that if it is empty, they are losing money, and they are all about the bottom line. So if they can put a group of pigs in there and in 6.5 months, they're at 280 pounds or whatever it is these days that they're butchering them at, they move them out, they bring the migratory workers in there and they do a quick cleaning job. They got a good crop of them to work off of now. And then they put the next group of pigs in. So they want that place full all the time. They want the feed bins full and cranking feed to those animals all the time. You know, making manure all the time, making stink all the time. That's those guys will even say, you know, when you get around those CAFOs, they smell so bad that you don't even want to swallow. You know, you can taste it. And they will say, smells like money to me. But the dumb farmers don't realize that they're being used because they are told that, well, as soon as your loan is paid off here, look at all the money you're going to be making. But as soon as the loan is even close to being paid off, the people who own the pigs that are going in there are saying you need to do this upgrade, and this upgrade, or we can't put pigs in. We can't make you a contract. And they're saying, dadgummit, I was going to be paid off this year and I could quit my job in town, but now I can't. Yeah, that is a racket. And I was this close. I mean, I was so excited about, wow, you can make up to $60,000 per year on each one of these hog houses. And I've got this perfect 40 acres down in the back here. Yeah, it's really scenic and picturesque, but it'll look even better with those big hog houses in there, won't it? Yeah. I almost did it because I was coming out of the military and used to being poor. And I thought, now's my chance to get that Corvette. I'm glad I didn't do it. My wife didn't like the idea of it. But that wasn't the reason I didn't do it, honestly. I mean, but now if she doesn't like something, I'm trying to look at that like real close. Okay, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. All right. So that's it. That's alternative feeds. And we could take the word feed out and we could put anything in there, alternative, and you follow sort of the same prototype, the same thought process going through. Alternative housing, alternative, you name it. And, you know, the people who manufacture things are constantly steering you to their product. It's business. It's business. But, you know, if you're paying their prices, they're the ones that are benefiting, and you are just believing that you can run faster and jump higher. And that's not the case. And in this business, you know, let's say you're homesteading for 10 years and you finally push the pencil and you realize, you know, we could have had this farm paid off if we weren't doing this homesteading thing. Like, this is costing us. And a lot of people don't figure that out until, it's too late. I got to tell you, when I was homesteading out in Montana at our first place, that was the last thing on my mind was, are we making money? because I was just so into the process. You know, wow, cool, pigs. And then we got into the butchering process. That was cool. You couldn't help notice it though when we would cut up a pig, we'd kill, slaughter, and cut up a pig, and then I would put it in boxes and then bring it to the base, and people I work with would take it, and then they would pay me money, and then I had money in my pocket. Then it was like, hey, this is profitable, you know. It's just like in that movie The Jerk, where Steve Martin says, ha, a profit scheme. A profit. Well, we live in an abundant environment that's been abundant creation, and it is profitable, and the profit is there for gain, and the gain can be distributed and create more gain, and it can benefit more of these earthlings. So in more ways than one. And I guess I'll just leave it right there. Appreciate everybody coming by. Oh yeah, 2 hours. I got to get done. I can't be doing this. But I had a long nap tonight, and I'm not going to be going to bed anytime soon. So appreciate everybody coming by, and we will see you next time. Remember, anyone can farm. Good night.